Right time. March. Halt. Left pace. Present arms.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order arms. Right pace. Forward march. Superintendent Trustbearer, opening remarks.
Thank you, President Angel. Good evening, everyone. I'm pleased to announce that last week we broke ground on the new Karen Crow Heights Elementary School. The new 100,000 square foot facility will be characterized by a large central media center and community gathering area. The design of the classroom wing provides opportunities for resource, speech, and small group support, student support spaces at the core of each wing. These spaces create flexible and collaborative spaces between grade levels and minimize disruption to ongoing classes. We can't wait for the new school and excited that students will get to learn in such a state-of-the-art facility. Congratulations to Mr. Eric LeBlanc, Paul Breaux Middle School Band Director, who has been named as the recipient of the Louisiana Music Educators Association 2022 Standard of Excellence Award. This award recognizes the students, the results of quality teaching, and superior performances in Louisiana high school and middle school instrumental music programs. Mr. LeBlanc will be presented with a plaque at the LMEA All-State Concert in November. I'm very excited to announce that our first Arts in Education event will take place on October 24th when our 6th graders travel to the Hyman Center to watch a performance by the Kiev City Ballet. Arts in Education is linked to academic achievement, social and emotional development, and civic engagement. These rich art experiences will provide an equitable learning opportunity for all of our pre-K through 5th grade students, and we're excited to provide these experiences in collaboration with our community partners. As a reminder, 2023-24 Magnet Academies applications are open now through December 20th for students interested in attending one of our academy schools. The lottery will be held on February 7th. Information on the application and selection process can be found on our website. LPSS's surplus online auction is going on now through October 18th. Visit www.govdeals.com for more information. As a reminder to families, students do not report to school on Monday, October 17th and Tuesday, October 18th for fall break, as well as Wednesday, October 19th for parent-teacher conferences. Wednesday is also report card day. In closing, I want to remind parents, plead with parents, urge parents to speak to their children about the very serious consequences of making a threat to one of our school campuses, to our students, or to staff members. All individuals responsible for threats over the last few weeks have been identified, they've been arrested, and face legal consequences, as well as expulsion from school. The recent incident regarding a bomb threat at one of our middle schools, Paul Breaux Middle, is still under investigation. However, a search warrant was issued to that social media platform, and I have full confidence that an arrest will be made in that case as well. We will continue to take very seriously behavior that is threatening, that disrupts the school environment, and behavior that makes any staff member or other students feel unsafe. We'll continue to work closely with law enforcement and hold accountable to the greatest extent allowable by law any individual that is responsible for any threatening behavior. So again, I urge parents to have these serious and important conversations with students so that everyone can remain in school, safely in school. Thank you, Mr. Angel.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. At this time, the board will recognize Mr. Jacob Shaheen, candidate for U.S. Representative for the 3rd Congressional District. Jacob, up to the mic up there.
I'm an educator too. I know most of y'all, some of y'all are educators, so I know y'all got to go back to work tomorrow. We're actually on our fall break starting tomorrow, so I get the day off. But it's a blessing to be with y'all. I promise y'all this could have been an email, and it probably would have been more compelling as an email, and I'm going to actually send it as an email to y'all. But I prepared some statements. I'm going to read them, and then I'm going to get out of y'all's hair. So, again, thank y'all for your time. I'm Jake Shaheen. I'm running for U.S. Congress in Louisiana District 3. It's this district. Lafayette is the heart of this district, and given I am myself an educator, I was real excited to be invited. I'm running on a platform of campaign finance reform. It's pretty simple. Our representatives don't represent us, they represent their donors. We've codified political bribery in America. Big money interests dictate which candidates succeed and with high dollar donations and independent expenditures. Corporations can give unlimited funds to politicians who serve their interests. Those corporate candidates can then overwhelm grassroots candidates like myself with media advertisements, effectively silencing working class candidates and constituents. We don't live under Democratic or Republican governments. We live under corporate rule. Politicians on both sides of the aisle serve the same masters. Pharmaceutical companies, energy conglomerates, military industrial complex, and other multinational corporations. And let's get something straight. These corporations, they can't give out these donations like out of the good of their heart. These corporations have fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders to maximize profits. So these contributions, they're investments. And time again, these investments have proven safe and very, very profitable. And this type of corruption is prolific in the state of Louisiana. And it's a tale as old as time. However, in 2010, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Citizens United, which has opened the door to dark money PACs, meaning even foreign interests can influence our politics. China, Russia, any country worth its salt is going to buy a politician or 2 or 10. So we have to get money out of politics and take back our democracy. I believe we need an amendment to the Constitution to put restrictions on political candidates to keep them honest and working for regular Americans and not exclusively big money interests. And while I believe we should cement these ideals into law, we create our own monsters. As voters, we have to first hold ourselves accountable for the people that we elect. I'm asking voters to realign the way we think and vote and prioritize candidate integrity and vote for the people who aren't taking those corporate dollars. Because if our politicians see that that's a risk to their power, then they're going to actually represent us. Working class, and while I believe, I'm asking, I'm so sorry. I'm not going to accept those donations. I'm not going to accept big money donations, and I'm going to work to represent working class families because that's what we are, working class family. Let's vote for regular working class candidates instead of the same old corporate cronies we have enough of in DC. We have tremendous issues to face and to address in this country, but I don't believe we can effectively address any of those issues before we address the underlying corruption. If we're going to escape this corporate rule, we're going to need solidarity, working class solidarity. Okay, thank you. That was kind of a break for that. I appreciate it. Hey, look, I know I said I'd be quick. I actually am an educator, so I did want to actually say some things about educations and teachers. Louisiana has long suffered at the bottom of education metrics in America. This has cost our state billions of dollars in unrecognized potential economic growth. And, you know, also like the human cost, right? Education is the most lucrative investment a nation can make in itself. And I believe the most effective way to improve educational standards is to invest in more and better paid educators. So you know how politicians will like overtly and actively support things that benefit them financially? Well, I'm a teacher, so I think when you pay teachers, we invest that right back into the classroom, into our students and into the communities. But this is a market-driven approach. When you increase pay, you are able to attract more qualified and capable professionals. I think we've all seen qualified and capable professionals leaving this profession to go make more money elsewhere. And anecdotally, in 2014, I graduated from McNeese with a bachelor's in general study, which qualifies me to be a general. I applied at Kalamazoo Parish.
Let's
Oh,
wrap it up. No, go ahead and finish your thought, but your 3 minutes are up. Finish
Oh,
your thought.
yes, sir. Well, this is my 6th non-consecutive year teaching, and I just wanted to say, a man can't raise his family on these salaries. We got to raise teacher pay just for the humanity of it. And I really appreciate y'all for your time, and I know that Lafayette has kind of figured that out a little bit more, so along with that email with my words, I'll also send my resume to y'all as well. God bless y'all. Thank y'all so much. Enjoy your fall break.
Thank you, Jacob. This time, we'd like to recognize Lane Payne, also a candidate for United States Representative for the 3rd Congressional District. Mr. Payne?
I want to thank the board for inviting me to come. I'm Lane Payne. I've been pastoring in Vermilion Parish for over 23 years. I've been married for 42. I've been involved in our community in several ways. One way was the 2016 flood. I think everybody remembers that, when the police jury asked me to head up the distribution for the whole parish. Getting involved, we didn't really know what was going to go on. We had 150 volunteers a day at an old stage building, lined up the cars. We separated out the cleaning supplies, the diaper sizes, and we had each call, how many people in your family, what size diapers, put a sticky on the window, and when the gate opened up, we served over 1,000 cars in the first 3 hours. When FEMA come back a couple of months later, they were looking at the names and the hours of the volunteers. They said, you have no idea how much money you brought back into the parish. So we just want to serve our people. Couple years later, another storm's coming through. We go to a police jury meeting and say, how can we help? And by the way, how much money did that bring back into the parish? They said it paid for the cleanup in the entire parish. And they said if you didn't know, your name was written in the OEP records as a point of contact in case of disaster. We weren't looking for that. We were just trying to serve the people. And I believe that Washington has forgotten that truth, that they're there to serve the people. I made a trip from Swear's Grocery, from, maybe y'all don't know Vermilion Parish that well, but Swear's Grocery is below Chaplin, and I went to Cow Island, Pecan Island, then I went to Creole and Cameron and Bell City and Lake Arthur, then Jennings and Egan and Eunice, and somebody said that's a lot of miles for a few votes. And I said, isn't that the whole point? Our people feel abandoned. And so people feel that way, and when they see someone that says, you're the reason I'm running, I'm not running against anyone, I'm running for the people of Southwest Louisiana. I was just pastoring our people like I normally have, and back in March I felt like God grabbed me by the chin and pushed it towards Southwest Louisiana. I said, here we go. So my wife looked at me and said, what you gonna do if you don't win? I said, I'm not really sure, baby. The Lord's the one directing my footsteps. He's never lied to me, and I trust him. So I believe our people are worth fighting for. And if you look back at history, when somebody fights against something, they'll end up quitting because they find an excuse to back off. But when somebody's fighting for something, they don't quit to the end. And somebody asked me the other day, do you think that the United States is really about to roll up? I said, if it is, we're going to go down swinging, because I've got 8 grandkids, and I don't want to leave them what's been left them so far. So I'm fighting for the people of Southwest Louisiana. Really appreciate your consideration for number 24, Lane Payne, for U.S. Congress. Thank y'all.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Payne, I had a boat at Danny Richard Marina for many, many years. I've been to Sewell's Grocery many times. Okay, we'll move on to information items. Introduction of new administrative employees. Mr. Mouton?
Good afternoon to Ms. Trosclair and, of course, to our board president and board. I have the extreme honor tonight of introducing two new administrators in Lafayette Parish. So the first is Ms. Carla Ritter Landry. She is the new assistant principal at Karen Crow Middle School. Ms. Landry has 28 years of experience in education. She holds a bachelor's degree from the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, a master's degree in educational leadership from the American College of Education, and she is currently a doctoral candidate in educational leadership at the American College of Education. She has taught inclusion at Myrtle Place Elementary, special education at Lafayette High School, and most recently served as a special education teacher at Ove Como High School. Ms. Landry believes that with teaching to reach every student through creative and data-driven decision-making, all students can learn and achieve. She looks forward to working with Dr. Guarini and the Karen Crow Middle School community to create a community of positive leaders who reach excellence through teamwork and collaboration. Ms. Carla Ritter Landry, Assistant Principal at Karen Crow Middle. At Como? Lafayette Parish. And she was the 2020 Teacher of the Year for Lafayette Parish.
Superintendent Trosclair, Lafayette Parish School Board President, Mr. Tommy Angel, and Lafayette Parish School Board, and everyone here tonight. Everything I plan to say in my little presentation is what Mr. Mouton already said, so I'll start somewhere else. I cannot tell you how happy I am to be a part of the Karen Crow leadership team and working with Dr. Guarini and Elizabeth Falk, because I believe that all kids can learn and achieve. And I know that students at Karen Crow Middle, in the community of Karen Crow Middle, that has gathered around me since I have accepted this job 12 weeks ago, will support us in making great achievement gains for our students and propel them into what I believe will be such a successful time for all of our students, excuse me. I cannot thank everyone enough. I'm also a product of Lafayette Parish School System, attended Plantation, Paulboro, graduated from Como. My mother was a teacher. Ms. Trosclair, my daughter is also at Edgar Martin. My son is at Lafayette High. So I guess it's just in our blood. I cannot thank you all enough, and I look forward to a fabulous year. Thanks.
Next up, we have Mr. DeMarcus McQuain, and he is the new assistant principal at Acadiana High School. Mr. McQuain holds a bachelor's of science degree in secondary education from the University of Louisiana at Lafayette and a master's of education in educational leadership from Louisiana State University in Shreveport. Mr. McCain has 20 years of experience in the field of education. He has taught mathematics at Bolton High School in Alexandria, Louisiana, and most recently served as a math teacher at Acadiana High School. He also serves as an adjunct professor at South Louisiana Community College on the Lafayette campus. Mr. McQuain believes that instruction must be a student-centered event, and he enjoys not only being an academic facilitator, but also a motivational coach for his students. He looks forward to working with Ms. Edelman to challenge all students to reach their highest potential. Mr. DeMarcus McQuain, Assistant Principal at Acadiana High School.
Good evening. I would like to first thank Mrs. Trosclair, Mrs. Aloisio, Mr. Mouton, and Mrs. Lane Edelman for granting me this opportunity to serve our great community of Lafayette Parish. It takes a lot of faith to pull a math teacher out of the classroom, especially in today's teacher shortage. But I assure you and promise you today I will do everything in my power to make sure our district is an A district. For me, teaching is not a passion, it's a way of life. It's been a way of life ever since I turned my back on engineering and came into education. I fell in love immediately. And I continue to fall in love every single day with the people I work with and the students that I serve and the community I serve at large. So again, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm grateful, I'm humbled, and I look forward to continue to do excellent things in this parish.
Mr. President, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Mr. McQueen. No.
Did I forget something? Oh. Once a ram, always a ram.
Okay, no. On behalf of my family, you're a big part of the reason my son was successful in his degree in applied engineering, because you have to have a very, very good mathematical background. And he will never forget Mr. McQueen. You were a big part of his life, and the Lachele family will always be thankful for you. Thank you.
Mr. McQueen, between your speech and what Mr. Lachele just said, I'm starting to second guess removing you from the classroom.
Next item is going to be State Counselor of the Year, Dr. Rabelais.
Good evening, Ms. Superintendent Trosclair and Board. I'm excited to introduce two of our very special counselors who won State Counselor of the Year. First, I'd like to start off with Kelly German. She's a counselor at David Thibodeau STEM Magnet Academy, and she believes the best way to advocate for school counseling profession is through showing the impact that school counselors have on the success of students. She provides many trainings for teachers on the correlation between student social needs and their academic successes. She wants all her stakeholders in the school and the community to understand that counselors are not just at school to handle scheduling and testing, but also to meet the social emotional needs of the students and to teach those skills to every student on David Thibodeau's campus. After the return from COVID, Kelly noticed a lot of the spark of the positivity was missing from campus. She began to look for ways to get that spark back. Because of her advocacy and determination, Kelly was able to secure a real-life building mascot, a therapy dog for her students. Little Deb is now part of the school's family and the community. Kelly supports her students in every way possible and often is the person that goes above and beyond to make sure that her seniors walk across the stage each May. In addition to her dedication to students, she's always willing to share ideas and resources with other counselors across the parish. This high level of dedication and advocacy is why Kelly German was named the Lafayette Parish High School Counselor of the Year and the Louisiana State High School Counselor of the Year.
Dr. Rabelais, I think we want a picture with our board members, yes.
Layla Touchette, counselor at Prairie Elementary School, is a professional school counselor and licensed mental health counselor with certifications in ADHD and autism. She is committed to developing and implementing a comprehensive data-driven school counseling program. This has included collecting data on classroom counseling lessons, small groups, teacher input, and stakeholder input about her program. After looking at school-wide data and realizing 75% of her IAPs at her school were based on ADHD, she decided to use her expertise and start an initiative that informs staff, teachers, and family how ADHD truly impacts students and what can be done to help them at home and in the classroom. This initiative has been expanded this year to include autism as well. Other aspects of her program include advocacy for students, advocacy for the profession, supervising interns, consultation with outside agencies and other counselors, and presenting at conferences and in college courses. Being a counselor is the heart and soul of who Layla Touchette is, and she does everything in her power to make sure she's providing a data-driven, comprehensive school counseling program based on the American School Counselor Association model. Layla's also pursuing her PhD in counselor education and supervision and was chosen as the 2022 recipient of the National Certified Counselor Award, the Louisiana Counselor of the Year Award, and the overall State Louisiana Counselor of the Year. She will represent Lafayette Parish and Louisiana at the National School Counseling Gala in Washington, D.C. this February during National School Counseling Week. And this is just her 4th year as a counselor. Layla.
Okay, we're gonna bring back item 2.3 momentarily, but this time we'll move on to 2.4, discussion concerning operational pay for owner-operators. Mr. Latchley?
Yes, sir. I'd like to recognize Ms. Smitty and Mr. Fugile. They're going to give us a little information that we may be able to move with here in the future.
Good evening, Superintendent Trosclair, members of the board. Good evening. My name is Smitty Smith. I'm the bus driver president of our association. And I brought up a few concerns that we have to Mr. Lachele and a couple of other board members. And I'm here to make everyone aware that we need a little more increase with the fuel and the cost of operating our buses. Hopefully it'll persuade some of our board drivers to come aboard and own their own buses. Right now we're getting a pay of $2.23 a mile, which is great. We love it. But we like to propose $2.50, which is only a 27 cents more, brings us to $2.50. So we want a flat rate across the board. I served on a task force with the Bessie board and the state of Louisiana, and we also came to where a bus that is operated to and from school should be getting total mileage, paid miles instead of half of our mileage. So we're proposing just a flat $2.50 locked-in rate for a year, considering the diesel doesn't climb to $6, $7, no telling what our future might bring. So I just would like for y'all to take this under advisement and to consideration to help us out.
Thank you.
Any-
Yeah, they just wanted to present the information, and if something can be done or we'll look at it, we'll get with staff. We'll try to put something on the agenda for November. I just wanted Smitty to come and inform us exactly. I wanted to hear it exactly from them what they were asking for instead of third party or this, that.
We had a meeting the other day, and there was about 17 of us, and, you know, we're grateful for what the board has, you know, blessed us with, but we just want, you know, things are going up. When I first started with the board 24 years ago, a basic oil change was under $200. I had my bus serviced a month ago. It was $550 for a basic oil change.
Right.
Wait,
Ms. Lu,
Mr. President, Smitty, can you explain a little bit about why you want a flat rate and how it changes with increases and decreases with the gas?
Well, the
or no?
fuel, we're getting like every quarter, which is every 3 months. Well, diesel can rise, but then by the time the third quarter comes around, we're dropped 50, 75 cents, which we already paid, you know, into the previous months out of pocket. We feel like we never catch up. We always falling behind, trying to make bus notes, insurance, fuel, maintenance costs, repairs of seats that our kids, you know, damage. And all these things add up at the end of the year, you know. So we're falling short. Most of us, you know, keep up with everything, but sometimes it falls short. So if we have a flat rate, lock us in, I think we can manage, because, okay, if you have a bus note and you're so used to getting X amount of money per month, then the following 3 months, they knock you down and you're like, well, I already managed and budget my bus account as is, and then I'm short $300-400 because of fuel costs and adjustment.
Yeah, I just wanted to explain that it does rise and fall. Like the 237 is an average based on the fuel at that 3-month period,
Yes,
correct?
ma'am.
And so if fuel goes down, then their payment goes down. If fuel goes up, you know, their payment will go up, but they can't budget on that fluctuating, and I think that's why you're asking
Yes.
for the flat rate. Is that what it is?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so that they will know for certain they can budget $250 a mile versus having to figure out 3 months down the line what it looks like based on the average fuel price going up and down.
Right.
any other board comments? Yes, sir. Mr. Centeni?
I have a question on the proposed number. Does that, so in your mind, how often would this be reviewed to make sure that it still covers expenses enough for you guys to turn a profit and in turn incentivize you to drive? You know, how often? I mean, it's not subject to gas price fluctuations now, right?
That's correct, sir.
So how
a
often
year,
would-
like visit every year, or maybe 6 months, or we can't predict the future on oil and diesel and gas and propane, or
Right.
what our buses run on.
Okay.
So Jasmine, you in favor of this?
Yes, actually, you know, we're trying to do what we can to make sure we continue to take care of our job.
Right,
But we also know that you guys only have a certain amount of money to play with.
right.
And so we're not trying to say that we got to go and try to get $1 billion to drive a bus. We know it'd be absurd. What we are trying to do is trying to make sure that we can provide for our families and be able to be on that road to take care of bringing the children to school so our teachers could do their job and bringing up children in Lafayette Parish. And so whatever we can do to be able to kind of get into that area is what we want to do, because like she said, everything is going up. My insurance, and I have no problems on my insurance, but my insurance went up to almost $9,000 this year.
Right.
To buy a couple of tires on my school bus, 2 tires is going to cost me $2,000 almost, and that's with our tax deduction, exemption. I'm sorry. And so there's a lot of things that's going up in price, but it's hard to stay on top of it when everything else is going up and pay isn't. So we're just trying to see what we can do. And once again, as she said, we really appreciate all that y'all have been doing to try to get us to where we could keep in business.
Thank you for coming.
Dr. Aguilar?
Yes, thank you. Smitty, you mentioned 2 things. You mentioned that you're being paid now for one-way mileage. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And are you suggesting that the board should look at paying for total mileage?
Yes, sir. Well, the state implemented and the governor signed that we get paid total mileage. State is recommending our state pay to be 175.6.
So you're asking for the board to consider looking at nearly doubling the operational cost?
Not really, sir, because right now, total with the state and local, we're getting $2.23 per mile. And we're just asking for $2.50, which is only a 27 cents increase between what we're getting paid now and what we would kind of balance our school budget, bus budget.
Ms. Morrison?
Yes, as someone who is married to a school bus driver for 25 years, a contract school bus driver, I understand the expense, and you don't know when something's going to break on your bus.
Absolutely.
It could be $1,000, it could be $2,000. So, and with the bus shortage that we have, we want to make sure that we take care of our school bus drivers so you can continue servicing us and picking up our kids and, upholding the responsibility that you have every day. So thank you all for what you do, and thank you for bringing this to our attention, because we don't know.
That's correct. Yes, Ms. Morrison, and we love our jobs. We love to transport our kids, and that's the most, is to maintain our bus as safe as we can possibly keep them.
Thank you.
Ms. LeBeau?
Yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt. Mr. Dugas, are we paying total miles right now? Somebody? Yes, right? Yeah, so we are paying total miles right now. So it would be $2.50, like she said, it'd be 27 cents above what we're paying per mile right now. We're not doubling per se the number of miles we're paying for. It's just we're increasing per mile they actually drive. Correct?
Correct. Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Could I add to what we're trying to do also too is make it really eye appealing also for other people, other drivers to want to buy a bus, because we've noticed that even back a while back, I'm pretty sure those been in the system for a while. I've been here almost 30 years. We had a system where everybody wanted to be in Lafayette Parish because every single driver was taking care of their job. There was no kids left on the side of the road. We didn't have hardly any problems in the transportation department. And I want to say that a lot of it is because of those persons that own their buses, they took more pride in doing their job. And so if we can get it to where people want to buy a bus, I think it would work out also for Lafayette Parish as a whole, and maybe kind of knock down some of the problems we have as a whole.
But board, I also want you to know that we have a lot of bus operators out there who want to probably purchase a bus because they care. They want to drive more, but they're kind of stuck because of what they bid on. If we can open this mileage up and get more contract, or no, we don't like to say contract anymore, we like to say owner operator, because we don't like to make a difference between board drivers and owner operators. We're all bus operators, period.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
have to agree with you.
Dr.
with,
Ozell.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Mr. Russo?
I know this is an information item, and when I spoke to Ms. Smitty and some of the bus drivers, my thing is to get more contract drivers on the road, because I think it's safer when you own your vehicle, you're safer, you take more pride in what you're doing. And I know we're gonna come back with something that's pleasable to both the board and the Bus Drivers Association. And there's only that's a step closer to getting more people to own their bus that we can maybe bring the insurance costs down and bring the maintenance costs down. It's a lot that we can do, maybe with 27 increase or more or less, or we don't know. But it would be a plus if we can have a certain percentage, and which I spoke to Mr. Watson about that, keep a certain percentage of contract drivers or owners on the road. It would be fair that all of us kept.
We have a lot of bus operators out there who take pride,
Ms. LeBouf?
whether they own their bus or not.
I was just going to ask, can you tell us the number of owner-operators that we currently have running?
We have 27, ma'am.
Okay, so it's 27 drivers that we were looking at for that. And so if you could give us maybe the total mileage, Mr. Watson or Mr. Dugas, and let us know what that affects the budget, that would be great. And Mr. Fuseli, you said your insurance went up to $9,000 from, what was it the prior year?
Well, when we first started, I started at 2,000. When we was at 500,000 policy, then we went to $1 million policy. I went to 4,000, and then I went to 6,000, and I'm almost 9.
And so from 1 year, it jumped $3,000?
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. Okay. And so we also, I think, need to look at that issue as well. So.
Ms. Morrison?
Thank you.
Just in support of what Jasmine said, we had less problems when we had more owner-operators. We didn't have a shortage of bus drivers. We didn't have students that's not picked up or left without being, picked up. So anyway, I think that if we look at that, we may be able to get back to where we used to be when, bus drivers, I hate to say really care, but it was more of a responsibility to make sure they picked up students, brought them to school, brought them back home, and then actually got up and drove the bus. I know my husband, if he could get out of bed, he was on the bus. It was not for a tummy ache or a headache or, whatever reason, he was in the bus. And we just need more of that, and I think we will find that more in our owner-operators.
I just wanted to tell Ms. Strascler, we really appreciate also, too, you taking us into account on a panel so that you can kind of see what's going on in the street, and then collaborate with Mr. Jonathan and also Ms. Watson, and being able to try to work out any problems and hopefully get a good team of drivers on the road that's going to care not only for each other, but more importantly for our children.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I've been in this business for 40 years. Right now, I would say your chances look pretty good. We'll move on then to the consent agenda. Let me point out that if we adopt a resolution, even though we adopt it in global, we will read the resolution before the meeting ends. So the first item on the consent agenda is 3.1. I'm sorry. 3.1, discussion or action concerning resolution 1022-204, Principals Month. 3.2, discussion or action concerning amendment to the consequences of behavior. I'm sorry, we're going to postpone 3.2 as well. That's going to go along with the
Mr. Angel, I'll pull that one so that we can postpone.
Okay, we'll pull it.
Thank you.
3.3 will be discussion and or action concerning resolution 1022-2043, Custodial Work Appreciation Day.
I'll pull that.
3.4, discussion or action concerning resolution 1022-2044, National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. 3.5, discussion or action concerning request for Secretary of State opinion related to nonpartisan status of the League of Women Voters. 3.6, discussion or action concerning a proposed plan of reorganization of staff in the Maintenance Department. 3.7, discussion or action concerning approval of budget revision and award for bids Southside High Restroom and Vending Building. 3.8, discussion or action concerning approval of budget revision and award for quote for Southside High Athletics Storage Building. 3.9, discussion or action concerning amendment to the state agency lease number 21865 on section 16 property in Dusson. 3.10, discussion or action concerning permission to approve the assignment of an oil and gas lease on Section 16 property in Ansler Butte. 3.11, discussion or action concerning the 2002 half-cent sales tax fund declaration of excess distribution, salary increase, and reserve. 3.12, discussion or action concerning granting authority to the board president or the superintendent to execute the act of sale for the purchase of a portion of the old Walmart on 1229 Northwest Evangeline Thruway. Approve a budget revision transferring $295,000 from committed for HVAC Fund 80 to warehouse consolidation Fund 45 to accommodate the consolidation of the general food service warehouse. I'm going to pull 3.12. 3.13, discussion or action concerning granting years of experience credit to current employees whose experience was discounted due to a policy in the effect at the time of hire. 3.14, discussion or action concerning the budget to actual for September 2022. 3.15, discussion or action concerning the 2022-2023 first quarter budget revision. 3.16, discussion or action concerning the 2022-2023 proposed project for fundraising for the matching program. 3.17, discussion or action concerning revisions to policies GBN, separation of employment, GBRIB, sick leave, GBRID, military leave, JBCE, public school choice, JGCE, child abuse. 3.18, discussion or action concerning lease agreement number 1 between Lafayette Parish School Board and the Law Enforcement Division of the Parish of Lafayette. 3.19, discussion or action concerning the policy file FEAB, selection of architects. 3.20, discussion or action concerning proposed policies IDDFA, Special Education Advisory Council, LEH, Patriotic Organizations, and IDDEC, cameras in special education classes. 3.21, Superintendent, discussion or action concerning Resolution 1022-2045, National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. 3.22, discussion or action concerning 1022-2045, National Domestic, did I say that already? Yeah. Sorry. 3.22, discussion or action concerning the minutes of the September 14th and September 20th, 2022. 3.23, discussion or action concerning a resolution 1022-2042, Bus Safety Week. Pull 3.23.
Mr. President, I move that the board approve all items not pulled.
Second.
Motion and a second that the move approve all items not pulled. Any questions or comments from any members of the audience concerning items not pulled? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, great school board members. Stephanie Skinner-Touchette. I'm a concerned Acadianian. I want to talk about the Cancer Awareness Month. I think that's really nice, but we need to get to the root of the problem. When my grandmother was growing up, doctors used to have to travel far and wide to find a case of cancer. And now that they put chemicals in our food that cause cancer, there's chemicals in our lotion, there's chemicals in the air, there's chemicals in our shampoo, chemicals in the washing powder. And so we're bombarded by these people, and that gives us cancer. And there's also doctors online admitting that there's cancer viruses in some vaccines. So we need to take care of ourselves naturally so we can prevent cancer, because there shouldn't be cancer. It's very terrible. And then the next thing I wanted to talk about was the Southside High School restrooms. I know you being on the school board, you hear what's going on all over this country, and you hear crazy stories about what's going on. And I just want to make sure that our girls, they're so precious and special that they always have a safe place. And then we can't have a boy come into the girls' bathroom saying he's a girl. And I don't think you should be talking about sex to children anyway until they can vote and buy liquor, you know. So I just want to make sure that doesn't come here. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I was listening outside and my computer was buffering. Did y'all pull the 2002 sales tax? No. Okay, so it's part of the Englobo. Okay, thank you. Do you read Lafayette Parish Association of Educators? I just wanted to say that we are in favor of as much raise as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Linda. I teach at Lafayette High. I've been teaching 20 years now in a self-contained low incidence classroom, and I guarantee you I love my job. There's nothing more rewarding than teaching kids with autism or significant disabilities. And to talk about the 2.5 cent sales tax, I wanted to know who approves if we get a pay raise, if we get a lump sum? Who makes that decision? The board makes that decision.
You're looking at them.
So we don't have any input in what goes, what we're gonna get. When we first started the campus, which was, I guess, 10, 11 years ago, I've been highly effective every year since the conference began. And I don't feel like we're being given incentives to continue the profession, because a lot of times special ed teachers do get burned out, in their profession, because it's so, you have to have patience and you have to love what you do. And I always say, love what you do what you love. And you have to have the support of paraprofessionals to help you in that area. So, if we could do anything to help the support staff, the paraprofessionals, we couldn't do our job without them. I can honestly say that. So, that was just my question. My main question was about who makes that decision, because, I know that the low performance schools got that incentive, that, supplement in August, in the beginning of the school year. And I feel that, we are A school, but we're not getting recognized for being an A school. We're just being set aside, and, y'all are A school, so it doesn't matter, Yeah, I'm highly effective, but, I take pride in that because that's my job, and I love what I do. So I just wanted, to give my opinion and just let y'all know that I think the support staff and paraprofessionals need a raise. They really do. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Angel, Mr. Lachele, and members of the board, and Ms. Trosclair. I want to personally thank you for your ongoing support in the fight against domestic violence and for proclaiming October as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Roxanne Martin, and I am a domestic abuse survivor. I am here today representing not only Voices of Acadiana and Faith House of Acadiana, but I represent all victims and survivors of domestic violence. Voices of Acadiana advocates for victims of domestic violence by actively working towards systems change, domestic violence education and awareness, and survivor outreach in order to break the generational cycle of abuse in families. In the past, I have spoken about the negative effects that domestic violence has on everyone. Today, I'd like to speak on the positive impact of domestic violence. I know you're probably asking yourself, how can there be positive effects? Thanks to Faith House of Acadiana and Voices of Acadiana, I am one of the many examples of the positive impact of domestic violence. Next month, I will celebrate my 5-year anniversary since leaving my abuser. Since then, I have been able to travel to places like Alaska, Colorado, and California. I have reunited with family and friends who my abuser had strategically distanced me from. I was even able to buy my very first home. I have been able to surround myself with an army of people who are my cheerleaders, including family and friends and coworkers Some of them are here today, and I told them not to. In addition to all those things, the thing I am most proud of is that in July 2023, in part due to a scholarship I received from Break the Silence against domestic violence and the ongoing encouragement from someone who is very near and dear to me, I will earn my master's degree in educational leadership. With that degree, I hope to continue my career with the Lafayette Parish school system to ensure that children of domestic violence receive the care and support they so desperately need. We ask the leaders of Lafayette Parish School Board and the citizens of Lafayette Parish to wear purple on Wednesdays to bring awareness to the issue of domestic violence. If we want to change society's perception of what domestic violence is, we must create action steps that individuals, families, communities, and institutions can take. Let's each commit to doing just one small thing. If everyone focuses on doing one thing, we can create a world we want to live in. The collective power of our actions can create real transformation for domestic abuse victims. Lastly, even though my mother wasn't able to make it today, I'd like to thank her and say, I love you more than anything in the world. Love your baby girl. Thank you.
Good evening. I don't know how to follow that right now, so apologize. I'll make it brief. I'm speaking on item number 320 with the cameras in the SPED classrooms. It appears that what you have drafted as the board policy is not actually completely in line with the state law that was passed. The state law also requires, sorry, real quick, still reeling over that. Procedures regarding how a parent or legal guardian may request the installation and operation of cameras in the child's classroom, and the policy should include those provisions. So I just want to put it out there that your policy does not include that or any of the other elements in there, because it was revised, it was amended this last legislative session with that information. So you're voting on a policy edit that isn't completely in line with the new legislation. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from members of the board concerning items? Yes, ma'am, Ms. LeBeau.
I just want to explain the 3.11, the teacher, the 2.5 cents sales tax, that we are voting tonight on a $500 permanent salary increase, and then it's a $3,836 to the teachers itself. So I just wanted you to know that that's what is up for proposal, because we want to see that the teachers get a raise and have that be a permanent part of our salary schedule. And then the other portion of that would be a bonus. We did also do a little set aside so that we can prepare for any fluctuations in collection of sales tax. So if the sales tax is lower, we're able to secure that we will be able to pay the teachers that permanent salary raise, and then also give the excess to them in a lump sum check, which is what we're proposing tonight. So I just want to make sure that you were clear on the fact that that's what will happen if we vote for this measure as proposed. And then I just wanted Mr. Dugas, if you could announce, when does that $500 salary increase, when does that start, so that they know when they're going to be paid on that portion?
That'll be prorated by the number of days left in the work year, starting November 1st through the end of the year, and then the full 500 will hit next year.
Thank you so much.
Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
If I could read the resolutions that were pulled.
Sure.
National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Whereas October is designated as National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and whereas breast cancer touches the lives of many in Lafayette Parish from every background, every community across our parish. And whereas although great strides have been made in combating this devastating illness, more women and men will be diagnosed with breast cancer this year, and hundreds are expected to lose their lives to the disease in our community. And whereas during National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, The Lafayette Parish School Board honors those we have lost, offers our strength to those who carry on the fight, and pledge to educate ourselves and our loved ones about this tragic disease. And whereas this month we stand with the women, men, and families who have been affected by breast cancer, and we recognize the ongoing efforts of dedicated advocates, researchers, and healthcare providers who strive each day to defeat this terrible disease now. Therefore, be it resolved that the Lafayette School Board does hereby proclaim October 2022 as National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And it is signed by our Superintendent, Secretary, Treasurer, Irma Trosclair. And I will go ahead and find domestic violence. And once again, I want to mention to Ms. Martin, she gets with me every year to put this on the agenda so that she can speak and tell her story. And I tell her every year, when you're afforded a platform like we are, you have to take advantage of it and use it for good. And Ms. Martin, it's a pleasure every year to stand with you and help you. And I'll go ahead and read the Domestic Violence Awareness Resolution. Whereas the Lafayette Parish School Board recognizes and participates in a public awareness campaign to support National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And whereas Domestic Violence Awareness Month provides an excellent opportunity for citizens to learn more about preventing domestic violence and to show support for the organizations and individuals who provide critical advocacy, services, and assistance to victims. And whereas acts of domestic violence occur every 18 seconds in the United States, and whereas domestic violence can take the form of physical, emotional, sexual, psychological, and economic abuse. And whereas oftentimes the victims of domestic violence are children who can have lifelong repercussions from the emotional or physical trauma of being exposed to domestic violence. And whereas domestic violence survivors and their advocates have rallied to the cause of victims' justice. And whereas the Lafayette Parish School Board recognizes the need to treat domestic violence victims with dignity and compassion. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Lafayette Parish School Board declares October 2022 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month and calls upon our community to stand together against domestic violence, to offer support and understanding to survivors, and to participate in the domestic violence awareness activities. And this is also signed by our Superintendent, Secretary, Treasurer, Irma Trosclair. Thank you, Mr. President.
That's it? That's the only, okay.
That's the two I was.
I'd like to recognize one of our custodians. I didn't realize you were coming to come up to the podium to speak. That's my bad, man. Go ahead.
That's it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
We pulled that. We'll have discussion on that in a minute.
Okay. All right.
You can come back.
Oh, want to come back?
Yeah, I'll let
All right.
you come back. Okay. Then I guess right now we'll take a vote on those. I'm sorry, Mr. Centini?
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to just make a clarification about item 3.5. I was contacted by a member of the League of Women Voters this morning. Wanted to make sure that everyone understood that there is a new state law, revised statute 17:2119, which reads that, first off, each public school governing authority shall provide an opportunity for each high school senior who is at least 17 years old to register to vote by using a school computer to fill out an electronic voter registration application or by using the state mail voter registration application form. Part B says no public school governing authority shall allow the involvement of any political or partisan group or organization in the registration process. And then Part D says each public school governing authority may follow guidance provided by the Secretary of State in implementing the provisions of this section. I believe some members of the League of Women Voters may have understood this item to be that we would be challenging their nonpartisan status instead of trying to affirm their nonpartisan status through this new statute that we're trying to follow. So I wanted to make sure that they understood that we value their contributions that they have made to voter registration drives in our schools in the past, trying to make sure that that partnership extends into the future.
Okay. Okay. We ready to vote on those items or not pull? We already voted. Okay. So, okay, then we're going to go back to, I'm sorry. Let's vote then.
9 for, none against.
Okay, motion carries. Then we're gonna go back to the items that were not pulled, and that is, we're gonna begin with the one on, I'm sorry.
Some people don't get it.
Mr. Booth?
Thank you, Mr. President. I apologize, I misspoke earlier. It's the number it's 368352 is what the teacher bonus per se, that 13th check will be. And then the $500 salary increase. I said 3,800 earlier. I just wanted to correct myself. Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, we're gonna go on to item 2.3 under information items. Community discussion concerning potential disciplinary action for recent threats against LPSS campuses, employees, and students.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend the rules for item 2.3.
Okay,
Second.
motion to suspend the rules. Can I get a second?
Yes, sir.
Anyone opposed? So ordered. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're gonna allow, input from members of the audience. If you want to line up or come up to the mic and, concerning this agenda item.
May I go first, Mr. President?
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say a couple of things as parents who have come here to speak tonight get their thoughts together and make their way to the podium. You know, we had several threats against our campuses last week and into this week, and I thought this was very important that we have this particular discussion to, you know, not even as a look back, right? Because there were a lot of things about our response, about law enforcement's response, about our staff's response, about the district administrator's response to what happened that were very efficient and very effective. And then there were some things that we could do better, like any action that happens. There's always something you can do better. And so I didn't put this item on the agenda to be critical of anyone. I wanted it to be constructively critical. I want it to be actionable feedback. You know, if something happened that we could do better, if something, God forbid, went wrong last week, I want to know about it. I think the superintendent wants to know about it. I think the rest of the board members want to know about it. But we also want to know about it in a fashion where we can do something about it, not just lobbing criticisms over the fence for someone else to take care of. Let's be collaborative about this. Let's be purposeful. Let's be intentional about any action that we take tonight. And so I'll start off because I'm a Lafayette High parent.
He wants to make a comment.
Well, I'm going to finish my thing. So my first constructive criticism here as a Lafayette High parent was I would really appreciate seeing someone on each campus as part of the crisis intervention plan or the crisis response plan be designated to send out hourly pace calls with what's going on campus. It's as simple as there is no change, everyone is safe. We can't tell them, we can't tell them the 200 buildings been cleared, the 300 buildings been cleared. We can't do that. But I want to know, is there any change in the situation at my child's school? And I think that was one of the things I heard from parents last week was a little more timely communication, and that's actionable feedback. That's something we can do. So that's a constructive criticism that I would like to see. So thank you for letting me speak.
Mr. Latchley?
Mr. President, in conversation with the superintendent, I've got two things. I've got what I want to read here, and then as someone who lives in Acadiana's district or what happened on Monday and Tuesday, I also have something I want to bring up. But in talking with the superintendent in the 21-22 school year that we're in right now, the Lafayette Parish school system has had 14 shelters in place this year. 13 of the 14 are because of neighborhood concerns not related to our schools. These were put in place by law enforcement, not LPSS. Law enforcement advised we go shelter in place. 7 lockdowns since the start of school. 1 lockdown was due to neighborhood concerns, which was law enforcement. 6 lockdowns due to student threats. Students causing commotion. All, except the Paulboro Middle School recent bomb threat, all have been identified, arrested, charged with terrorizing, and expelled. You play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. The one thing I brought up to the superintendent via email, we've talked about, and my constituents are asking for, and I'm going to ask staff to look into it, and I'd like it, at least for high schools, on the agenda as soon as possible. Because Acadiana, one of the incidents was a note left, and one was bullets, ammunition left in a bus, okay? By mistake, whatever, still gonna face the fire. Metal detectors, starting in our high schools, we're just gonna run people through metal detectors, because with the weapon, with the ammunition left on the bus, we'd have run every kid through a metal detector. It may have made it, well, what happened, just a little bit faster of securing the school. But I've asked Ms. Trosclair to look into metal detectors, most likely for high school and middle school, but I think if we can start with high school first, and constituents in my district and parents, even out of my district who I've talked to, that's one of the things I think it's time to put in the school. We need to take it to the next level. I know we've done some stuff, no hoodies, transparent, see-through purses and bags and so forth and so on. That's good, that's great, that's an extra level that law enforcement has asked us to be a part of. But I think it's time for metal detectors in our schools to prevent a weapon from getting inside of a building. Thank you.
All right, if no other, yes ma'am, Ms. LeBeau?
Good evening, Superintendent Trosclair.
Wait a minute, ma'am, excuse me.
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna recognize members of the board, and then we'll have the
Okay.
parents. You had your hand up, Mr. LeBeau?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
But I just want to say, we had a couple people reach out and they were upset that this was not a consent agenda item or an actionable item. And I tried to stress to them at this point, we do have policies and procedures in place. We are doing the investigation work, just like the police officer, to figure out, like Mr. Centini said, what was effective, what was not effective, where can we improve ourselves? Until we educate ourselves and we really give the administration time, who has been in the schools every day for a different threat, time to really digest and really help us figure out where our policies have weakness, where our facilities have weakness, where our collaborations need to be better, where our communication needs to be better. We really cannot take an action item on this. So just know that doesn't mean we're not taking action. It's just we're not maybe doing a consent agenda item on the board floor, but it doesn't mean that we're not constantly working to improve the things that we're doing. So your feedback tonight is invaluable, and that's why I'm glad this is a information item and not us immediately jumping to do something, put something in place that may not be helpful. So anyway, I just want to thank everybody for being here and voicing their concerns, and for the board members to be working so well with the superintendent and the law enforcement for us to figure out how we can actually improve the safety of the schools. Thank you.
Ms. Morrison?
Yes, we had talked about metal detectors early on, and there were some reasons why we didn't go that route. I don't know, Mr. Centini, do you remember? Because we really talked about that extensively, so I'm not sure if it was cost, but okay. Mr. Centini?
Yes, sir.
As I recall, on certain campuses, the openness of the campus is exceptionally difficult to secure. So I don't know how familiar each of you are with Lafayette High. I'm most familiar with that campus. Lafayette High would be far more of a challenge to put metal detectors because there are so many more doors. How do you make everyone at Lafayette High go through the front door? You really can't. Southside, by contrast, being a more recent school, has that single point of entry feature, so it would be very easy to put metal detectors at Southside. Or let me say it would be far more effective to put metal detectors at Southside. I can't speak to Como's campus or Acadiana High's campus, but generally speaking, when we talked about metal detectors back in 2018, it was the sheer multitude of doors, exterior doors that we have on our campuses that made it prohibitive. Because either you have to put them on every door, or you effectively have them on no doors.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, ma'am, you're up. I'm sorry, Mr. Broussard.
We did start prior to COVID. prior to COVID, there was a priority that we put in place. We started with Northside. Northside had a metal detector in place, and it's still there now. We replaced the metal detector with a temperature for the schools. But every high school, starting with Northside, was supposed to have a metal detector, but COVID took the place of that. And I wish we can go back to it. The only one is the Northside. So I can understand they got several points of interest to Lafayette High, but was working to secure that with fence. We had a lot of things in place, but nothing took place. Nothing happened. We're supposed to fence certain schools, and every school is supposed to have one point of interest. Like I said, because of COVID and what it do because of that, Northside was the only school that I know of that has a metal detector.
I'm sorry, ma'am. Go ahead.
Again, Superintendent Charles Clare, Board President Angel, Timmy Chachon. Good evening, Dr. Chachon. My name is Jennifer Randall Thorpe. I am the Chief Executive Officer of Meaningful Minds United here in Lafayette. Mr. Centani, that idea of a crisis intervention team with PACE calls is superb. I believe that every school needs a crisis intervention team. I am a certified peer specialist with the state of Louisiana, certified to work with individuals who may or may not be in distress. I said may or may not be, but all of our children are in distress. They all suffer from adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, as it is called. 1 out of 4 suffer from mental illness. That's 1 out of every 4 individual in here. 1 out of 6 from ACEs, or adverse childhood experiences. They're all in distress. There's gun violence, there's just violence all around. And crisis intervention is what's needed. And as the Chief Executive Officer of Meaningful Minds United, we are here to help you in any way possible. We have many programs, especially one that I like called Emotional CPR, a way to revive the hurting heart. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, Ella Arsamal. I like being able to speak after y'all discuss things, because that's when I come up with my questions or comments. So at some point, I'd like y'all to bring that back. I'd also like y'all to bring back public comments so that we can speak on items that are not on the agenda. But listening to y'all talk real quick brought up some questions for me. Like when you talk about a child being expelled, are you talking about the child being expelled from his school and being allowed to go to another school, or being expelled from the whole Lafayette Parish School District? And if they are expelled, how long does that expulsion last? So that's a question that I'm sure parents are concerned about. Also, a thing is, just because it didn't happen at a particular school doesn't mean a child is not affected, because I could only imagine, like, if it didn't happen at my school, I would think, okay, when is it going to happen? If it's happening here, there, everywhere. So counseling for those kids that at the schools that have not been threatened need to be considered. And, this is a community discussion, but y'all just put this item on the agenda. So this is not a real community discussion. I would like to see y'all plan ahead of time to speak to and invite community to the discussion, especially the parents at the schools that were affected, because some of them could not be here. They didn't know about this meeting, or they had to work. If they know ahead of time, they can make plans to be here. So, after y'all come up with a solid plan of action, I would like y'all to go to the different schools, especially those that were affected, and talk to the parents and the students to present the plan, what is going to happen if someone does make threats to schools, because they don't know. And they need to know that they have, you know, people looking out for them and that they can feel safe when they go to school. Thank you.
Hey, good afternoon, or good night. My name is Roddy Bergeron. I'm a resident of District 6. I just want to say, Mike Tyson has a famous quote about this. It says, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And I think that every time we have a plan that we think works, something happens and we come back, we have to revise that plan because we know now what doesn't work. One of the things I'd like to touch on tonight is communication. All right, whenever there's an incident, one thing that we talk about in my practice when we talk about incident response, incident handling, well, part of that is actual active and live communication, making sure you talk to people, that everybody knows as much as they can about what's going on, right? You can't say everything what's going on during an incident. You don't want to give out too much information, but at the same time, people need reassurance of what's going on. Regular, what we like to call cadence calls, even if it's 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever, just to say, hey, look, we're still figuring this out. We don't know what's going on, but we'll keep you up to date. People panic whenever there's incidents, right? We all do. Everybody does. As much as they want to say they're calm and collected, everybody panics. What helps people is reassurance, right? What helps people is hope, and communication is a big part of that. Second thing I'd like to touch on is metal detectors at the doors. Make sure that there's enough flow of students if we're going to do metal detectors, right? Don't just put it at one entrance. You want to make sure that students flow as freely as possible through entrance, because you don't want to create another area where someone could hurt students. If you have a massive students at one entrance, that's another target for people. So I just want to let y'all be aware of that. I share the same concerns that my school board member, Mr. Santani, does about the safety concerns at Lafayette High, and I hope that the new plans for Lafayette High address some of those security concerns. Thank y'all.
Good evening. Also, I'm a member of District 6, a resident of District 6. I want to piggyback off of what Roddy just said. LSU, I don't know if you remember the news several years ago, maybe 3 years ago, sometime before the pandemic. There was an incident on LSU's campus, and they were tweeting out every 20, 30 minutes. And their population is about 35,000 students. So a large campus like that, you had parents from all over the state now worried about their children, from Shreveport to New Orleans to Calcasieu Parish. And so you had these parents that were very fraught and upset because they had a person on the campus with a gun threatening to shoot up people. And so every 20, 30 minutes, there was a tweet that went out, there was a text message that went out to the parents, and I think that's really important. And as an advocate, one of the things that I always hear is the communication part. And to speak to what you said, Ms. LeBou, you could have put an agenda item on to discuss at least the communications plan of the crisis plan and put at least something in place to say, hey, we're going to commit to communicating every 20, 30 minutes. Something even as trivial to you may be a really big deal for parents. I think Elroy mentioned the crisis intervention teams at the schools. You have a rollover, I don't know, Holly's here, maybe $8 million a year, $5 million a year, $2 million a year, whatever it is, rollover in IDA funds. You have the ability to employ school psychologists and other people who have those licenses and degrees at each school. Have that network of people at each school. Because if you look at the history of those individuals that actually go and do that harm and terrorize on those campuses, there's always that one single thing that connects all of them together, and it's that mental health, it's that background, it's that inability to have it. And I'm not saying that to make an excuse for a student who brings bullets with them on a school bus, but it's a reality. And the pandemic has exposed a lot of the reality that we haven't dealt with. And I spoke about it last time when we were talking about book sacks and duffel bags and clear bags. I still don't see anything done to really address the mental health side of things. I don't see a crisis team at each school designated for that. And I think one of the things that you guys could start looking at is having those family engagement, not the university programs, the University View, whatever that's called, at 3 campuses, but have every campus and every administrator of every campus be able to bring their parents in and their students in and talk about threats, social media threats, bullying threats, all those kinds of things, because you have a lot of students that are in inclusion settings that are a little bit different than their peers. they get bullied, they don't know how to react, and then they do something impulsive that to our mind sounds threatening and DEFCON level, but to them it's just a reaction because they don't know, their brain isn't developed enough to understand what they're doing. So in a nutshell, regular communication with these parents, I think will help a lot, and bring back family engagement on each campus and have the parents part of the solution. And that's all. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Carrie Barus, and I'm a parent of an 8th grader at Paul Breaux Middle School. As you all know, we've dealt with a few things this past week, and it's been an interesting experience. I agree about communication. The things you think are little are big to us. Even knowing what period they were in, to know who they're with makes a difference. The only way to find that out is through social media, with one parent happened to figure that out and put it out there. But it gives us something to go by. So any little bits, I know you can't tell us the whole story, we understand that too. But any little bits that can be communicated that can help us get through the day and get through this helps tremendously. I agree about metal detectors. At the beginning of the year, we saw schools measuring bags and taking away colored sweatshirts that didn't work and this and that. But yet our kids encounter this. This is bigger. This is much bigger. It needs to be considered on a bigger level, if that makes sense. I go to work, and I work at a pretty secure place. I go to work, I can concentrate on doing my job because I don't have to be scared to be there. I don't want my kids to be scared to go to school. I want them to be able to focus on learning. I think that's what everybody wants. They shouldn't have to be scared. And I agree with you, Mr. Santani. I don't know how, with all the doors at Paul Breaux, how they can do that, but I'm sure with the right people on the right team, you can figure it out. Thank you.
Julia Reed, President, Lafayette Parish Association of Educators. So in the recent, we've also had a lot of people reach out, teachers, school staff. They also are asking for more communication from their administration during the lockdown when they're trying to keep the kids calm, and also keeping the kids off their phones and trying to give the kids good information rather than whatever is getting shared amongst them on their phones. The teachers would also, there are also some logistics that I'm not going to speak about now that they would like to see addressed. They've already gotten some feedback from their administrators about some things that they're not okay with. And I look forward to, meeting with administration to speak about that more. And then if you indulge me, I would like to take off my teacher hat for a moment and put my parent hat on. She upset me. My child goes to Myrtle Place Elementary School, and the fence around his school is like, I'm short and I could jump over it, and it scares me when all these things teachers have been on lockdown, and I haven't cried up here in so long, but as a parent, this is like really freaked me out. As a teacher, I'm cool as a cucumber, but the thought of my child being at risk is, and I love Myrtle Place, it's a wonderful school, but I just, with all this, it's been bringing it up, and that and it's not a controlled interest, there's not a controlled entrance. It feels like anybody could jump over that fence. We really need to revisit looking at the safety of these school facilities, and I know we have been, but it's just been really pulling to mind, not just to me, but also for parents at other schools who haven't been affected by this. But it's very scary, and it pulls it in your mind. And a lot of the schools don't look like very well controlled from the outside. And speaking personally as a teacher, my school is very wide open too, at Acadia Middle School. and it makes me nervous. You know, we really need to work on controlling the entrance and exits of our schools. Thank you.
Hi, Stephanie Skinner-Touchette. Hey, great school board. I agree with Ms. Ella that we should have open comments since we're paying for taxes. You know, just let us talk. I mean, we're grown-up adults, and we'll just, you know, say our comment. Now, the next thing I want to say is, this is so disturbing. I'm so sorry to all the teachers and to the school board that this is happening to you. I had no idea that our schools, they have to become like an armed fortress, and everybody's so nervous for their children, and this is happening. Because when we were growing up, it was not this way. And I'm just so disturbed to hear all this. But praise God, we don't live in a Democrat city, because in those Democrat cities, they've defunded the police, and they don't even have school resource officers there. And they have violence, homeless, illegal immigrants running all over the streets, endangering the children in the schoolyards, and the mayors won't do anything about it. So praise God that we are here and we can do things about it. Now, I don't like metal detectors in the school, but if you have to do it, I agree, quit searching through the children's backpacks and, you know, go ahead and have the metal detectors. You could also train all the teachers to be armed. We live in a constitutional state. So that's going to help our school children because we have the Constitution here, and so that makes it a safer community. We have the statistics and we have the numbers. Where there's an armed population, it's a safer population. But I think anything and everything that you can do to keep our children safe, that's very, very important. A lot of these school shootings that happen, these kids they're hopped up on antidepressants. They're hopped up on pharmaceuticals, and it's proven. Like the Columbine shooters, a lot of these shooters, they're on these antidepressants, they're hardcore psychotropic drugs, and even the inserts say so. And another thing that we can do is, what was I going to say? It's so important. But we just need to do everything we can and bring Jesus back. I mean, the day we took God out of school, it just started going downhill, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. There's nothing wrong with prayer at school, and there's nothing wrong with acknowledging Jesus. And if we bring him back, things can definitely will change. So that's what I have to say. But thanks for everything you're doing, and I'm sorry this is happening to everybody, and especially the children. It's terrible.
Okay, I just want to make a comment. I'm at Lafayette High, so we had 2 incidents last week. And on Friday, Superintendent Charles Clark came to our school, and we had 29 staff members out that day because they were so afraid of coming to school and not knowing what's going to happen that day. So I wanted to thank her for coming to our school and talking to our students and let them know this is not going to be tolerated. It had a Miss Broussard on the list, and my family thought it was me. Can you imagine? Your family worrying about you going to your job every day. So I think it made a huge difference that she came to the school and spoke to the students. And I really appreciate you doing that because it made me feel at ease. And I want to just say thank you.
We're going to move on. Yes, sir, Mr. Centeni.
We have one other part of this that I'd like to discuss before we move on, if you don't mind. You know, we focused a lot on, and rightfully so, on the actual implementation and execution of the crisis plan, both at Lafayette High and at Paul Bro last week. But I really asked the District Attorney, Don Landry's with us tonight. I invited him to come to the meeting to be available to the school board to ask questions on what happens in the punitive area. You know, what do we have at our disposal? What avenues can we pursue in order to adequately provide a deterrent to our students? Because at the end of the day, this was not any administrator's fault. It was not any teacher's fault. It was not the superintendent's fault. It was not our fault. It was our students making exceptionally poor choices. I mean, exceptionally poor choices. As I described it to my daughter last Monday night, I said, you know, this isn't say you're sorry and clean the cafeteria tables for a week trouble. This is grown-up trouble. These are life-altering decisions, as they should be, because obviously we're not doing a good enough job as a society of providing a deterrent for these students to making these choices. So, Mr. Landry, would you come up to the microphone? I'd like to understand for myself, and I'd like, and I think this is also Mr. Landry. This is Chris Landry, an assistant district attorney, sir?
Yes, he's the assistant district attorney, he's the chief juvenile prosecutor.
Perfect.
Here in Lafayette Parish.
Thank you both for being here. So, you know, we made a point, Mr. Lachele made a point earlier about, you know, we've had 7 lockdowns and we've caught 6 of them, or 6 were due to student threats and we've caught all but 1? All but 1. So we have 5 students that have been arrested and sent to juvenile detention, I believe. Can you help us understand what the process is now, and if there's anything we can do differently or better to aid your office in prosecution?
Sure. And I appreciate y'all letting us come tonight. Thank you for taking my call earlier and discussing this matter with me. Thank you to everybody on the board, Ms. Trostclair, for all of your service. We do appreciate it. You are appreciated. You really are. I brought with me Chris Landry, who is our juvenile prosecutor. He's the chief of the juvenile section here in Lafayette. We have excellent prosecutors in Vermilion and Acadia also. And the reason I brought Chris with me is because he really has bought into this juvenile system. He knows it very, very well. He handles a lot of cases on a daily basis. He's been working overtime on this issue because he and I have met several times. So I'll ask Chris to come up to the mic also and answer some of the questions that you have. So Chris, you want to answer that first one?
So I'll try and streamline it, but essentially it's like every other case. Law enforcement's going to do their investigation. We're going to get a report. We're going to look through the report and say, we see the crime, that it's there, or we need more information. And on the school board side and the teacher side, the information we need is kids coming to teachers and saying, I'm scared, I got anxiety. It's talking to the counselors to make sure that it's truly caused a disruption. Terrorizing has certain elements, and one of those is the disruption of the school process. Obviously, the Lafayette High one, that's a no-brainer. That falls under terrorizing. We now have a new part of terrorizing that's called menacing, which makes it a little easier for our office for those ones where a kid writes a note and says, I'm going to shoot up the school, but it doesn't go on lockdown. It causes a minor disruption. But the terrorizing, that's the felony. That's the big one. And to help our office, it's information, communication, share it with law enforcement so it gets to us so we can have a good case and prosecute.
And I also like to add, we'd love to be able to cut this off before it even starts. And this is the perfect place. We talk about education, right? So if we can just educate these young students as to some of the consequences they might face, I think that will go a long ways. So we're prepared to come into your schools if you want to have us and go to a general assembly, morning, noon, night, it doesn't matter to us. I have quite a few prosecutors who have already told me that they will help us with this project if we can get it going. We'd love to come in and just give a quick spiel on the consequences. And the consequences are more than just what the juvenile might face because he called in an improper communication. We want them to realize that together with that, you've got first responders coming in police cars, fire trucks, ambulances, traversing the entire parish at high rates of speed with lights and sirens, putting all of Acadiana in some type of jeopardy. And I don't think they think about that. They don't realize it. They don't realize what effect it might have on the parents, their parents, and their grandparents. So we'd love to be able to work with you as a team effort and try to educate the young students.
Mr. Landry, we will be in touch because we'd like to work with you all as well. I think it's important for our students to have the information so they can make better informed choices.
Thank you so
moving
much.
forward. Thank you.
Dr. Shesso?
I had a quick question for the district attorney. Is it possible for us to seek restitution for the amount of man hours and Lafayette Police Department funds that end up being used or sheriff funds that end up being used?
I think that's a possibility, and I think that's something you probably should discuss with your attorney, school board attorney, and I would prefer if he gave you that answer and that advice, but I can certainly see where parents could be responsible for the actions of their children. And if they cause damages, I think Louisiana law might well provide a process where those kinds of damages could be recovered. Am I right, Chris, you agree?
Yeah, and on the juvenile aspect or the criminal side or the delinquency side, restitution from a juvenile, that's going to be a decision that comes up to the judge. through the sentencing process, and I can't say for a fact that the judge would order that.
But it is a possibility, I think a real possibility under these circumstances.
Mr. Aljo?
Yes, yes, Ms. Mason?
I also wanted to thank y'all for coming tonight and telling the public exactly, you know, what we can expect and how serious this is for our community, because as you said, I mean, it does tie up the entire parish when this sort of thing goes down. And I'm also really glad that Chris Landry is on this, fellow graduate of Lafayette High. You know, I'm so proud to be from Lafayette, and to see this sort of thing happening over and over at Lafayette High and then at Paulboro, I mean, it's embarrassing, and I'm looking forward to sending a message with the consequences.
Mayor, Ms. Marsden?
We talked a lot about communication, and I'm thinking here with parents, kind of like Mr. Centani said, that he spoke with his daughter and told her what the consequences are, and this is not a game. I think we're successful when we involve everyone, the community as well. In this aspect, I think that parents has a responsibility in this as well, to sit down and have a conversation with their student and explain to them the consequences, so they won't even think about doing something like that. So it starts at home. It really does. Our parents having a conversation with their children. So I'd like to invite them as well in that way to inform their children. Thank you.
Ms. LeBoop?
Mr. Landry, do you mind walking us through like a timeline from when the incident occurs to when the actual, I guess, sentencing, would that be the right term to use, or when the actual decision is made on what the penalty is imposed upon the child? Can you explain that timeline just so parents have an idea and the students have an idea of what it looks like post-arrest?
So we have court every month, so once the juvenile is arrested, they have a 72-hour hearing that happens within 72 hours. Then it moves to what's called an answer hearing, where you admit or deny the allegations. Then you're going to have a motion date, which is a month later, and then you have the trial date. So it can move up to 3 months, depending on if we get the reports and the information from law enforcement quickly. And it can move very, very quickly.
And during that period, where is the juvenile?
They could be maintained in the juvenile detention home, depending on how serious the incident is, or they could be on 24-hour house arrest with an ankle monitor. It just depends on the situation.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Marsden.
And I also wanted to point out Lafayette Parish, in comparing them to other parishes, may have 1 incident or 2 or 3. We have 10 just in Lafayette Parish. So we really have some work to do here. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing everyone work together with the judicial system, the school board, parents, and the students, so that we could get this done. Thank you.
Dr. Chazal?
2 quick questions and then a statement. So I'll get the questions out first. I'd like to ask the restitution question to Mr. Hammonds as well, if we can seek restitution.
Yes.
Short and sweet. I got you, Bob. I got you, Bob. Just like your name, Bob. Okay.
Dr. Chazal, here's the rest of the answer, though. And I've talked to the superintendent about this. We've just been discussing it now for a week. We have to be able to prove the damages. Now, you see, the district attorney and his assistant are talking about the criminal side of things.
Right.
I'm talking about the civil side of things. And I do think the parents are responsible for the actions of their children. And if, in fact, this school system incurred expenses as a result of their actions, and you could prove that it was their actions that necessitated those expenses, I think in a civil case, the school system would be entitled to recovery of damages. Now, you still have to have a solvent defendant, like you do in any lawsuit. You know, you have to have somebody there to pay the damages. But if the parents had homeowners insurance or any financial resources of their own that you could seize for purposes of satisfaction of the judgment, that would be the next step in the process. But the answer to your question is yes. In my opinion, you can seek reimbursement of expenses that you have incurred as a school system in response to these threats.
Okay, thank you. Second question, is it possible for us to look at even a permanent change of placement for these kids as far as, I personally wouldn't want the individual returning back to my school if I was one of the named kids type stuff.
Yes, we can assign to a different school. We can make a long-term assignment to the alternative school. Depending on each, it's a case-by-case basis. It could be a student that's assigned to attend school online, virtually. So yes, we do have options. You are not guaranteed to go back to a school where you've made staff or other students or all of these families anxious and nervous.
No other questions?
No, sir. I was just going to thank Mr. Landry and Mr. Landry for joining us this evening. I really appreciate it, and thank you for your offer to help our students understand that with decisions come consequences.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going back to item 3.2. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, one more parent. Timmy Chasson, parent of a 7th grader at Paulboro. I really appreciate you guys. I really appreciate everything that you guys did throughout this process. It's easy for everyone to bash us or them in the process, but my kid is a energetic 7th grader, to say the least, at Paulboro. And I woke up in the morning and had a text message, and then it informs you as to what's going on. And your first thought is, man, you got to be kidding me, man. Like, wow, like it's hitting home. That's my school. That was my mom's school. That was my daughter's school. My mom lives all of 2 blocks from Paulboro, so she knew everything that was going on. And to hear the reports of what went on and them explaining what's taking place and them taking care of kids and the police response, Lafayette PD, the sheriffs, and as well to hear reports of what occurred at Lafayette High when it came to, Superintendent, help me out with the gentleman's name, Nick Richard sent a very nice email to the superintendent just thanking them for the unbelievable sight of central office staffers and custodians and teachers and administrators on their hands and knees checking underneath lockers just to be sure that everyone was safe. I drove by Lafayette High. I saw a ton of police out front to the point where there was no entering the school. I didn't try to enter. It's just to drive by en route to a job, and to see that for someone to even try to walk onto that campus was almost impossible was truly amazing. And I want to thank you guys. I want to thank the board, because I know the board. I spoke to my school board member, and he told me that y'all were all in discussions as to what was going on, and staff was keeping you guys abreast just about as much as parents were, because it's a basic text message just letting us know that, hey, this school is on lockdown, and we'll keep you guys updated with everything, but at least that's notifications. And I appreciate everything that every single person in here did. I mean, all the way down to transportation. When I drove to go to the job and realized I was 2 blocks from Lafayette High, I said, well, I'm just gonna keep driving straight. I just wanted to see. And I think, you have to forgive me if I'm saying it wrong, I just saw a ton of buses at Cajun Field. And I mean, they were staging, and they were ready to go. And just the response is amazing. So I just want to tell you guys thank you. I appreciate it. And for my 7th grader, soon to be in 8th grade, and then for the 4-year-old coming up, I appreciate it. Thank you for keeping us safe. I appreciate you guys from the bottom of my heart, because I tend to think I can handle anything. And for that split second, you realize, like, I can't go get him. I can't go in and see about him. I can't even go on that campus as a board member at that time. I mean, honestly, like, let's be honest, they're gonna look at us like we're crazy. What you doing here? Oh, I can try to flash some credentials all I want, but yeah, we need you to go across the street. Yeah, we appreciate you. Go sit in Hyman Center parking lot. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to item 3.2. The chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the board approves an amendment to the Level 4 elementary and Level 3 middle and high school consequences of behavior policy by adding Code 114, threat of terrorism or violence in the 2022-2023 Student Parent Handbook as attached.
Second.
Second by Mr. Okay, any discussion? We've had pretty much discussion, I think. In that case, Madam Secretary, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm public comment, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. Azadeh Yazdi, parent, District 6 resident, advocate. I'm here to speak on a small phrase in Code 114, which is similar to almost every other code you have. It's a little underestimated, but extremely critical, and I think Dr. Shaslan kind of mentioned a little bit about it earlier. So in that, it says change of placement or expulsion. I've been, let me start over here, sorry. There's a distinct difference between a change of placement and a recommendation for expulsion. My tax dollars have been spent on intentionally misleading legal opinions by your attorneys. Your attorneys telling staff using a change of placement in lieu of a recommendation for expulsion to usurp direct access in the appeal process to the school board is really unethical and creates unnecessary litigation that will ultimately result in a judge rescinding and returning a student to school immediately over due process violations and a misuse of the law and policies. You can just ask Caddo and Jefferson Parishes, just to name a couple. And with Don Landry here and asking Chris Landry about the processes and the procedures, there's this criminal side of it, and then there's the school board side of it, and they made it very clear that what helps them is having all your ducks in a row, having all your incident reports and statements correctly written out. I've been to hundreds of disciplinary and special ed change of placement hearings. I go because I respect the gravity of procedures and processes, whether in favor of a student or the school. Because no matter what, the integrity of the process is the most fundamentally important element for both the student and the parent and the school personnel. It's why we don't have an amendment in the Constitution about school discipline, but we have one about due process. 7 out of 10 times I've been to any type of regular or special ed disciplinary hearing, the final ruling is usually to return the student to their placement or school because somewhere along the way the procedures and the policies were not followed. Playing this word game with Code 114 could result in the most severe collateral damages. A change in placement is a suspension according to your own policy, JDD, and the suspension hearing is only conducted by a principal or their designee, not a hearing officer. The hearing officer are designees of the superintendent, not the principal. A recommendation for expulsion is directly with the superintendent or the designee. The behaviors you list to make a statement in Code 114, which we all want all of our kids to know that this is serious, warrant a recommendation for expulsion, full stop. If that's what you're gonna do with this code, make it a recommendation for expulsion and leave the rest of it out. Even the law says that you have the authority to do that. During that hearing, the superintendent or designee may alter the discipline to a change of placement at La Rosen if they want. And if it's a student with disabilities, then you go ahead with the MDR, and there's another process for that. As a parent, I take these threats seriously because I worry for my own son's safety. I probably worry more than most because I've witnessed firsthand the improper way due process discipline procedures are handled, not just here, but anywhere in the state. I would be very angry to learn that students who commit violations warranting a Code 114 are returned to school by a court or any other state due process ALJ because your attorneys that I pay for chose to advise you guys improperly. As Superintendent Strassler stated in her opening remarks, students were expelled. Why not use that in that code instead of having a change of placement or recommendation for expulsion? Why is this code's consequence in conflict with that decision? During board member comment, I encourage you to pull up your own policies, JD, JDD, and JDE, and ask your staff the factual practical differences. Please amend this and other codes of this nature to clearly explicitly align with those policies. If you want to make a statement, make it clear these are recommendations for expulsions. If you don't, every single parent and every single staff is going to question whether or not you're really worried about this and taking this seriously. Please make it right. Don't play with words. Sometimes shortcuts cost more. Thank you.
Let me remind you, ma'am, we have 3 minutes, okay?
Okay, that's fine. Carrie Barus. I'm gonna pick up where she left off with words and meanings, and I'm a details person and I'm a word person. And a lot of what I read in here conflicts with each other, and I'm afraid that it won't be helpful in the long run. It starts with if a student is reported to local a law enforcement agency for threats of terrorism or violence? Wouldn't it be when? If kind of leaves it open. Also, there are differences from hearing. You mentioned hearings in two different places, and then you hear there's a hearing or a placement meaning. Those things seem to have different meanings, but they're used in different places for, looks like meaning the same thing. Also, first we mentioned that the student is readmitted to his school or will be transferred to an alternative placement. Then at the end, we transition into an out-of-school suspension option. So are there two options or three here? They're all very different outcomes. There's also a conflicting until the student has successfully completed their intervention plan, and upon returning, interventions will be put in place as appropriate. These seem like opposites to me, which is correct. Like I said, I'm a words person and a detail person. This is what I do
I gave you 3 minutes, you gave me one back. Thank you. All right, any discussion from members of the board? Yes, sir, Mr. Centini.
I have a couple of questions for the superintendent, and then one for Mr. Hammonds. I'll just ask Mr. Hammonds first. Mr. Hammonds, did your office review this? You review this policy?
Actually, Mr. Santani, we reviewed all of the other policies that you approved tonight, and I reviewed this policy just this week in preparation for the meeting.
And
I was not involved in the drafting of this particular policy.
Did you have any changes to be made after you reviewed it?
No, and again, the part of the controversy here, or the confusion, is the fact that the legislature, as usual, has delved into student discipline. And when they did that, they added terms to the statute that's applicable throughout the public schools in the state of Louisiana that's caused some confusion. The term change in placement has been added. Historically, the state statute on discipline provided that a student could be suspended or expelled. Now the legislature has added the term suspended, expelled, or had a change in placement. Now, there is a process in the statute for handling a suspension. There is a process in the statute for handling an expulsion. There is no process in the statute specifically for handling a change of placement. And so what the legislature's intent there was is somewhat questionable. And that is what has led to some confusion in that area. But I don't see anything in this draft of this policy that would be illegal, in my opinion. Maybe I would have used somewhat different language or wording, but I think the policy itself is fine.
Thank you very much. And then one question for the superintendent, then I promise I'll be done. Ms. Trosco, you know, this policy, thank you for bringing this to us. I think this is important to make clear that we have something separate for threat of terrorism or violence. I appreciate that. I'm concerned about, and not concerned's not even really the right word, but I'd really like to learn more about the underlying causes. You know, the threat of terrorism or violence, I don't think like a child just doesn't wake up one day and do this, right? It grows from getting away with smaller things or smaller rules not being enforced until they start breaking bigger rules. It's not, you never break the big rule first, or at least rarely you don't break the big rule first. So I'd like if you could prepare a report for us, and you can either present it at the board meeting next month, or you can email it to the board members, whatever is convenient for you. But I'd like to know a couple of statistics for all of our middle and high schools. I'd like to know, first off, for each middle and high school, how many discipline referrals have been made to the office. Second, I'd like to know how many of those discipline referrals have not been processed. Again, each middle and high school. I'd like to know how many distinct students comprise those discipline referrals.
Students with the same.
In other words, I'd
yes.
like to know if one student has 30.
Yes, yes, sir.
I don't need to know student name. I don't need to know any details. I just want to know, are we, you know, is it a 10% of the students are causing 80% of the problems kind of situation? It may not be. This is me attempting to figure out where the underlying causes lie. And then of the students that have the greatest number of discipline referrals, I'd like to know if any of them are categorized as pending registration at any of our schools. You know, this is, which I think is going to be indicative of potentially a parent who is not as involved as they need to be in their child's education if we can't provide documentation on residency in this parish. So, thank you very much for
Thank you. We'll
gathering
get
that
you-
information.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Broussard?
Thank you. I've got a hard time digesting this. You know, students permitted to return to school until undergoing a formal mental health evaluation. You know, there's so many things in here that does not, I don't want to say punish the student for doing what they did, but there's so many things in here, too many loopholes that allow them to come back into the school what they terrorize or made threats to terrorize instead of going back to the school they're zoned to. If you are with a school to charge the rules are, if you do anything, any infraction whatsoever, then you lose your privilege to go to that school regardless of how large or small it is. And to go back to any school may sound harsh. To go back to any school on our campus, I think is a threat to all the students at that school. It's hard for me to digest this and vote for it in a good conscience because it has too many loopholes to allow an individual to do certain things. So that's the problem I've got with it. I like to see, sounds harsh, but I like to see a harsher punishment.
If there's no other comment from members of the board, Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote. I appreciate your remarks, Mr. Broussard, I really do.
Wait a minute, that's not right up. Oh, yeah, one no. Oh, oh.
8 for, 1 against.
Yes, ma'am.
I know it's after the vote, but earlier, I was asking our attorney, Mr. Bob, can you bring to light the state law about the expulsion and what sort of school we have to provide?
Yes, the general provision of Louisiana law is that any student who is expelled from a public school has the right to attend an alternative school. And you do not have the right to deny them attendance at an alternative school. But there is, however, at least one exception to that rule. It's very rarely applied, but does exist. And because of that, if you don't mind, it's only one sentence, and so I'm going to read this sentence to you, so there's nothing lost in the interpretation. It provides the conviction of any student of a felony or the incarceration of any student in a juvenile institution for an act, whether said act is committed in this state or outside the state, which, had it been committed by an adult, would have constituted a felony in this state, may be sufficient cause for any public school superintendent to refuse admission of said student to any school, except upon review and approval of a majority of the elected members of the school board when a request for admission is made to the board. This statute has been in place, Well, I've been doing this now for 45 years, and I don't think this statute has ever changed during that 45-year period. Basically, my interpretation of this language is that if you have a child who is convicted of an offense that would be a felony if the child were an adult, then you have the right, the superintendent has the right to refuse readmission of that student to any school. And that the parent would have the right to ask the board for readmission to a school, and then the board would ultimately vote on that. This is one of the very, very few areas, where the board members themselves are actually involved in the discipline process. And again, this law has been there for decades, and I'm not familiar with any board that's ever used it. But again, I don't know that we've had situations like we've had recently with the threats that have been made, which clearly constitute felonies had they been committed by adults. So again, this law is there, it has been there for a long time, virtually unused, but in response to the question, assignment to the alternative school is required by statute with this one exception.
No other.
Thank you. Sorry.
None? No other questions or comments? This meeting is adjourned. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we would say that for last. I'm sorry. I'll stand corrected. Okay, let's do 3.3, Associate Superintendent. Discussion or action concerning Resolution 1022-2043, is that right?
Mm-hmm. I did.
Mary, you want to make a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion that the board approves Resolution 10-022-2043, Custodial Worker Appreciation Day.
Second.
Second by Dr. Aguilar. Yes, sir.
Oh, I heard a lot today. But all I could say, it touched me as a custodian. And I want to appreciate Ms. Tuchele for sitting down, and Ms. Morris, and also Kyle Boyden that's sitting back there. I want to appreciate all of y'all for listening to me as I speak. Coming up as a young boy, I never knew how much custodians mean to the schools until I became one myself. So as I became one, I was telling Ms. Tuchele that I didn't take it as serious as first. But as I grew into it and noticing that custodian was more important than what I thought it was, it is. And our job means so much to me. And I love my job. I work at Parish Elementary, and I love everyone that's on that staff, from teachers, from principals, whoever come on campus, I love them. But I noticed the other day, a student came to me Monday, and he said, "Mr. Toby," I said, "Yes, sir. My daddy passed away over the weekend." So I look at him and I ask him, "What made you come to school?" I said, "Why you come to school? Why you ask your mom to leave you home?" And he specifically told his mom that his hero was at school. And I said, "Who's your hero?" And he said, "You, Mr. Toby." So I said, wow. But to make everything short, I believe it's more important that our staff realize that how much custodians mean to the schools. Because some schools do it, but not all schools do it. And I don't point fingers at nobody, but if they have to open up their heart to the custodians and make them realize what's important, then kids do love custodians. They will come to a custodian more faster than they will go to anybody on that staff. And every morning, you come to Parish, and I tell you just like this, you always think I'm a celebrity at that school. And all I want to say is, please keep us as custodians as your number one staff, and make sure that we be your number one in your heart And I want to thank y'all and everybody else for listening to me tonight. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Toby.
Mr. Angel, Mr. Angel,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Toby, you came in, we've been in a new Prairie Elementary, but you came in last year and spoke on behalf of the custodian. And your plea was, we don't do the custodian justice. And I'm gonna put on the agenda that we have Custodian Appreciation Week, not a day. So you'll deserve at least a week. Everybody get a month, so you get a day. So I'm asking us to put on a permanent Custodian Week. All right, thank you.
You want me to read it? I'll read it.
Yes, Mary?
Okay. Whereas custodians arrive at school long before anyone else and leave after everyone. And whereas custodians help to create a welcoming environment at our schools, and custodians provide invaluable work in that they contribute to important first impressions and appearance of our schools and district office building. And custodians operate behind the scenes and work hard day after day to keep our schools clean and well maintained. And custodians build positive and impactful relationships with their students. And custodians in the Lafayette Parish school systems perform a long list of duties that are greatly appreciated and very important. And custodians frequently go beyond the call of duty to help keep schools safe. And schools in the Lafayette Parish system would not function properly without our outstanding custodial staff. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Lafayette Parish School Board hereby declares October 2nd, 2022 as Custodial Worker Appreciation Day, in honor and recognition of the work that our custodial workers do to keep our school environments well maintained for high quality instruction to take place. Thank you.
And
Yes, sir,
Mr.
Dr.
Tommy, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr.
Dr. Chesser?
You sure? Okay, thank you. So,
Yes.
you know, Mr. Toby, I want to tell you how much I have enjoyed visiting with you and getting to know you. You are one of the finest human beings that I know. You're such a model for me. Your work ethic, your dedication, your compassion for others, just something that it's an honor to watch. I know what you mean to the students and the faculty at Prairie. I had the pleasure of being a principal on 3 different campuses, and I know when I needed to know anything that was going on, I went to my custodial staff, because you all know everything. But I also watched children, just like the little boy that came to school after his father passed. I saw the connections that you all make with children. Thank you for making me aware that we need to honor and recognize you guys more. We absolutely do, and I'm going to make that a personal goal for me, that we let you all know how vital and important you are. But it's been an honor. You are just what I call the best of the best, and there are so many like you in our schools, and we're fortunate to have you all. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Morrison.
I just want to add, last year, Toby approached me in the hall, and I said, what Toby wants, what is a raise or something, and all he wanted was to be recognized and to be appreciated for what they do on campus. So thank you for sharing that information with me, and we will look at showing our appreciation for our custodial staff and make it Custodial Appreciation Week. Thank you for what you do, and thank you for approaching me last year and sharing your concerns with me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And Mr. Toby, we think you're so great, we're going to give you a new school next year.
Any other questions or discussion from members of the board? Yes, sir, Dr. Chasson.
Toby, man, I want to tell you that I appreciate you, man. You literally had me crying right here. Like, I'm just trying to hide my tears, and I shouldn't have to hide them. But you had me crying. A custodian is so important because I can vividly remember from Vermillion Elementary to Paulboro to Myrtle Place, to Northside, every single one of my custodians, Mr. Adams, Mr. Pinkey, Mr. Williams, Mr. Sampe at Northside, and all the way down to my freshman year at Northside. We're running around campus like we're crazy, and we think we run the school. And meanwhile, I'm still taking care of my grades. And Mr. Sampe sets up for the awards banquet my freshman year, and they announced that I had a 4.0 GPA. And he's waiting for me afterwards, and he says, "Man, I thought you was a little knucklehead just like them other boys you run around with. Come on, man, you taking care of business?" I said, "Yes, sir, Mr. Sam." He said, "Man, all right, man, I'm gonna make sure to check on you, period." And then I was blessed to end up going to school with his sons, Blake and Blaine, at Northside High School as well, the Sampe boys, some hell of athletes right there. And Mr. Sampe passed away a few years ago, and I was able to share with Blaine exactly what his daddy meant to me. When you ain't got no daddy, it means something to you that somebody care about you. And he cared about me. So I appreciate you, man. Keep doing everything you're doing. All right.
If there's no other questions or comments, Madam Secretary, we'll call for the vote.
Eight for, none against.
Motion carried. We'll move on to item 3.12. We'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to table this item for the,
Second.
till the next meeting.
Second.
Motion and a second to table item 3.12. We have any questions or comments concerning the motion to table? Members of the public, members of the board? If not, we'll call for the vote. Madam Secretary? Motion to table.
Oh, yeah, we got a second. Oh, yeah. Justice second.
I probably need to check to see if we have due diligence time left in our due diligence.
So I wouldn't worry too much about the due diligence time period. I don't know how hot the market is for half a Walmart out there. I feel like it's still going to be available.
I wasn't going to say anything, but a new purchase agreement can simply be, because I think it needs to be reworked anyway. But it should, typically in commercial situations, it should be 90 days. So whenever the superintendent signed it, if you just do Control F, you should pull up
Yeah, I
90.
mean, we've passed the 90 days. We're within the second 90 days
Okay.
because of the.
We can certainly sign another one.
Charles, do you know if we have what our due diligence is on this? Yeah, I think the next due diligence, our next due diligence is November 25th.
We're in our second 90-day due diligence?
Yes, we had a lot of work to do for,
Okay. But
to
that
make
should-
sure it was feasible, that the site was feasible.
So but that should take us to January 5th, my birthday. Hint, hint. Because it was signed on,
Signed in June.
it was signed on,
motion
7/5.
carried.
It was signed in June. Signed in June.
So signed July 5th, and then 90 days, right?
It's signed June 22nd.
June 22nd? Okay. So that should take us to
July, August,
12, 22, 3 days before Christmas?
I have November 25th as the next, I just pulled it up on my calendar.
Okay. But at 90 and 90,
Or it might have been 90 and 60.
oh, you did
The
90 and
second one,
60?
yeah.
Okay, all right. So we still have time for the next meeting. The necessity, the cost, something he brought up at the last meeting, which I need to check into because there's other commercial properties as well, but taking something on that corridor that will be needed, and then as well the individual commission money. The commission is not listed on there, and it looks like that person is gonna serve as our dual agent, which means that would be 3%, then compounded to 6% when there's other real estate agents in this area that actually donate to District 4, because that's in District 4, that can then subsequently either choose to help out Northside, with some that already do as well, but they spend their already hard-earned money. So we're just giving this 6% of $5 million, which is $300,000.
Well, I mean, we're not gonna get this kind of deal. Do I say something?
Do you vote to table, Mr. Bruce? Okay, so it's a yes. So it's,
Mr. President, we'd like to get the votes, the board members to vote to record, to re-record the vote. Five for, 2 against.
one more, huh? Three. 3.23, yeah. We'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sejedi. Public comment on, resolution 1022-2042. Board comment? Dr. Chesson?
Yes, sir. I wanted to read it. Resolution 10-022-2042, National School Bus Safety Week. Whereas National School Bus Safety Week, held annually during the third full week of October, is an active and evolving public education program that encourages parents, students, teachers, motorists, school bus operators, school administrators, and other interested parties to join forces and address the importance of school bus safety, with this year's theme being one bus plus one driver equals a big impact on education. And whereas school buses are the main form of transportation to and from school for many students, and thus they have a direct impact on student punctuality, attendance, and success. And whereas the entire transportation department bears tremendous responsibility devising complex routes and schedules, helping families make transportation arrangements, maneuvering traffic in various road conditions, maintaining behavior on the bus, and ensuring the safety of their most precious cargo. And whereas the first school district employees who greet many of our students each morning and the last who say goodbye each afternoon are our school bus drivers. And whereas the over 325 school bus transportation employees should be recognized for their exemplary safety performance exhibited each day, which ensures the highest level of care for other motorists and student riders. And whereas the Transportation Department, as a vital component of our Lafayette Parish school system, deserves recognition for their hard work and diligence for all students and Lafayette Parish, for all students of Lafayette Parish. And now therefore be it resolved, that Lafayette Parish recognizes and declares October 16th through 22nd, 2022, National School Bus Safety Week in Lafayette Parish, Louisiana. And as a quick side note, I'd like to thank Transportation, because I call and bother them all the time. Transportation makes it so that the one random kid that lives by Lafayette High that chooses to go to Northside, they make sure that they just, look, there's a bus passing here, and if they could figure out this here, and they make sure that kid gets to and from school. And that mama thanks us every single year, and that boy's a senior this year. And that kid's gonna graduate, and that's where he wanted to go to school, and he plays basketball, nicknamed Rax, love the kid to death. And as well, just like Mr. Todd, what it means to me, my very first bus driver, bus 176, Mr. Taylor, would pick me up on the corner of South Magnolia, and he would make sure that we get there, and when I spelled a word on the window that I shouldn't have spelled, he didn't tell on me. But he taught me a valuable lesson. Went home and my grandmother told me that I spelled it wrong and taught me how to spell it right. Appreciate it. Taught me how to spell it right. If you're gonna spell it, we're gonna spell it right. All right. But I got whipped though.
If we don't have any other comments, Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
Seven for, none against.